I spent some time with the Cuban exiles, those who are still alive. There are a lot of them still around who were in the brigade. Now they are still as angry as they were in 1961, angry against Castro, and even angry against John Kennedy for abandoning them on the beaches. But they will say their children and grandchildren don't seem to care as much. I mean, they're American, and this is old history to them. But the exiles, they have a museum there. They try to keep the history alive, but it's a bit of a struggle. And one of the guys who was in the brigade said an interesting thing to me about Cuba. He said that he realized he didn't know a single living person in Cuba anymore. I mean, so their ties to Cuba, the men who actually invaded Cuba to get their homeland back, those ties have been severed as well. So yeah, they definitely feel that the history's being lost, but boy, they still live it. And they talk about this, the invasion, in vivid detail. They have very good memories. They can tell you hour by hour how things went. And what they particularly remember is that sense of abandonment. They all went in there thinking they were going to be backed by the United States. They get there, they find themselves under attack from the air, from artillery, and they realize nobody's coming to their rescue, and these 1,400 men are alone there, just waiting to be slaughtered. And that sense of anger, but it's more than anger, it's a sense of loss, is still very, very powerful and very poignant when you listen to it.
Wasn't that one of the things that became impressed on Americans, starting, for example, with the sailors on the ships, on the American Navy ships, who were told, no, we're not going to blow up those tanks that are on the beach. We are going to get out of the beach area.
Yes, I interviewed a number of men who were young American sailors on American ships that escorted and shadowed the brigade during their invasion. They were just over the horizon, loaded to the gills with weapons. There was an aircraft carrier out there with A-4 Skyhawks on it. And these men who were young at the time, some of them started to cry when I interviewed them because they felt a sense not of loss, but of having watched somebody drown, of letting this happen, and they could not respond. This was particularly powerful memory for men who were aboard 2 U.S. destroyers, the Eaton and the Murray, that were sent into the Bay of Pigs to basically do some reconnaissance to find out what was going on. And their orders were, find out what's going on there, because communications have been cut off by this point. Pick up any survivors you can. Don't fire. Don't fire unless fired upon. Well, so these destroyers go in there. Castro's tank brigade turns towards these and starts firing towards them. Now, Castro's tank leader, I think his name was Fernandez, later said, we were not firing at the destroyers, we were firing at brigademen who were trying to escape in small boats. But these guys aboard these destroyers felt like they were being fired upon. They thought they were being bracketed, which means a shot fired in front and a shot fired in back, trying to get a target on the destroyers.
Shots.
Yeah. They were, and I spoke to a gunner aboard one of these, said we were locked and loaded. We were ready to go. The commander saying to them, hold fire, hold fire, hold fire. They were ready. And he said he wished they'd been hit because they would have opened fire and they would have blown them away. I mean, these 2 destroyers would have ended this thing instantly. And for this man, it was, you could hear the pain in his voice that they hadn't been able to do this. But what if they had? What if shots had been fired and they had, and it would have become an overt American enterprise at that point? And then what? I mean, that's the thing you have to keep asking. And certainly that was, and that has to give you some sympathy for John Kennedy. He always had to ask, then what? Then what? If that, the minute American overt force is used, this becomes a global struggle with the Soviet Union, and then what? So there are no easy answers to it, but there certainly is, among people who are still alive today, a great deal of raw pain that's still left over.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and the leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.
Welcome